Hey, a little bit of excitement at the last minute there. I suspect that Neil, in transitioning back to Utah State, has just had a little snafu in his Zoom configuration, so I suspect that's what's going on. Um, but I am recording this with Fathom, and I'm recording it on my desktop as well. So hopefully, we'll get a good recording, Mike. And if you're okay with it, we'll post it on our YouTube channel and send you a link and everything. Well, he left, so I guess I bet you he did what I've done in the past on this. I clicked the wrong button and instead of screen share, it goes to leave the call. But okay, welcome, Bill, and
Thank you.
all.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
I don't know if you guys remember Bill. I think I've invited him once or twice, and he's introduced us to a couple of folks like Mike. So I invited him today.
Excellent, thank you. And is there
Hey
anybody?
guys,
Yep.
it's Mike. I just joined by phone.
Oh, okay. Okay. That works. Let's see. Is anybody who's here for the first time that could introduce themselves? I think I recognize everybody, and I could be wrong. Okay. So, Mike, I can see. Are you on the phone and on the video?
No, just on the phone.
Oh, okay. Different mic then. Sorry, I didn't recognize your voice. So, Mike, on the video, our presenter today is speaking, but there's no sound coming up. Looks like you're muted. If that helps, your computer thinks that you want to be muted anyway. Can't hear. Oh no. Can't. Yeah. Well, this could be an adventure.
Oh boy.
All right. Well, this is going to be an interesting presentation, Mike. Everybody, okay. If we just went to a Zoom, would that be okay with everybody? I've got a free tier, so in 45 minutes it'll kick us off. Okay.
That I have a Teams account as well if you want to go there.
You want to do Teams would be fine with me. I'm fine with whatever Teams.
Well, I think we normally do Zoom, so if you can get Zoom to work, we only have 45 minutes left anyway, so let's just do that.
Okay. I will. I'll send out a link. Well, actually, I can just send out a link right now. I'll put a link in there and then I'll send it to everybody. I guess I shut down Zoom, didn't I? Nope, it's right here.
So you're testing our fortitude by having us go to 3 different things.
Yeah. It's There we go. I don't know what to say. All right. New meeting.
We can try Skype as well.
I haven't used Skype in 10 years probably.
Skype is dead. Mirk,
All right.
Mirk.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I called in via the phone, and it sounds horrendous, but I can at least, this works.
What you missed is that we're now switching back to Zoom because too many people are having issues.
Or we could just stay here.
Well, as
Do we
long
have
as
a
Mike's,
Zoom? Yeah, do we have a new link? Because the Zoom links, I couldn't, it just kept me on a holding page.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'll try again if there's a new link.
well, what do you guys want to do? If we can hear Mike, I'd rather just go rather than trying to switch again. So let's just do this and see how it goes.
All right. Let me raise hand present. Okay, let me selected. There we go. 1 second. Can y'all see the PowerPoint slide yet?
Yeah, we see it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, I will jump right in. Yeah. So a bit of the breakdown on the deck, and then I'll introduce myself, and then I'll run us through. And thank you guys for being so patient with all this fun. But a bit of the breakdown for the deck I have today. So I've crafted it. I recently got to speak to a panel on a similar subject for Bravo Tech. And what we ended up doing was taking a lot of those questions. It was a kind of a deep dive into the changes in AI that we're seeing and the effects that we're having on technology leadership and how they're really approaching it, you know, with the drastic change. And I'm not talking about the whole of the history of AI, but really just the last 7 years, where we've come from and what we're getting into. And so I've put some of those questions together in deck format, and then kind of added in context from my thoughts as well as some of the thoughts from the panelists then for us to be able to discuss. So just so you're ready. So, but yeah, I mean, just how the landscape has shifted into a very technology-led power core model, and what that means, which from my experience, in short, is some pretty cool opportunities that bring a whole lot of work to your doorstep. As a bit of a call out, as I built these slides and reviewed it, parts of it honestly sound like I might be against some of this AI implementation. I just want to confirm that's simply not the case. I've been in AI, big data, automation, and MarTech spaces for roughly a decade, and I've somehow been fortunate enough to, or had enough success capital maybe to have a lot of opportunities to build large-scale AI machine learning model implementations in different industries. And like I stated, for these last 7 years, I've got to enjoy this ride that had, me and several of my peers go from drastically trying to garner buy-in for machine learning implementations we can see value in for the business to, now you better have a pretty solid lock on your door if you want to hide yourself from new requests and use cases with the drive in AI we've seen recently. So without further ado, today, let me just jump in. So setting the stage here for us, right? So studies and surveys suggest that AI is going to be, or already is, as significant for our collective businesses and capabilities as the rise of the internet, right? And this school of thought is supported by the vast majority of those in our position. However, it really feels that far fewer have fully implemented the technology. As we all know, there's never an easy button, especially when it comes to AI and capability, right? So as experts of the technological frontier, it really falls to us to be able to set expectations and demystify AI for our peers and lines of business, and to show them where and how it will be most impactful. So that kind of brings us to our first question. So the role of technology and leaders. So as I stated, I've gone through a couple of surveys recently, and our friends over at Salesforce suggested that 61% of CIOs are really feeling, I guess they use the word pressure, to become AI experts seemingly overnight. And really, that's fair. If you look at the last 1.5 to 2 years, the rise of Gen AI and its ease of access across the board, not just in business, but in your day-to-day life, has created this amplification in our world. And so the question we kind of pose is, how is that recent amplification affecting you in your organization? How are you managing expectation from stakeholders, also navigating what could potentially be a very steep learning curve, depending on where you've been? And so, this rise has, really brought about a expectation to deliver immediate insights on AI's potential for the business, implement solutions rapidly to keep pace with perceived competitors or actual competitors, and be able to act as thought leaders despite the technology's complexity and their competing responsibilities. What we're also seeing outside of this is, this brings a vast increase in complexity of AI projects. Organizations look beyond service level applications. AI initiatives are growing in complexity. Success really depends on, as you all know, building robust data infrastructures, selecting and training advanced models, aligning AI solutions with operational, legal, security, you name it. There's quite a bit to consider here as we dive in. So as stated, the generative AI piece has brought this around. But despite this, I mean, there's 77%, I guess, of CIOs have stated that while they have excellent buy-in, there's still quite a bit of hesitancy to move forward in this space. So the question we posed around this was, how has generative AI buzz reshaped your roadmap, or even given you an AI roadmap if you didn't already have one? How do you balance leveraging momentum with maintaining focus on long-term goals? So I think the AI piece has really been a double-edged sword, right? We already stated that this has brought a lot of hype to the business, but its renewed interest is driving, I think, one of the largest risks, right? It's the accelerated pressure it's bringing to us. Business leaders are looking for near immediate implementation and near immediate results based off what they're able to do with their own hands. I mean, it's Amazon Prime all over again as you start to take those expectations to other functions in your life. But the reality is that I think we're going to see a vast delta between those expectations and capability early on, right? The amount of work and years of work really that it takes for an AI implementation to be successful when it comes to just the data structures and capabilities around it, it's at risk, right? The distraction risk is also real. The shiny object syndrome. Generative AI can lead organizations to divert resources away from foundational initiatives and long-term priorities, which we've seen a lot of issue around as well. So maturity really requires, the groundwork, data readiness, infrastructure, governance, and enterprises must really take a balance, leveraging the enthusiasm that they're able to generate and starting that work or continuing it depending on where you are from this. So I'd like to stop at just those two and kind of let the group chat or ask questions about, where they are in this journey. Are you seeing these effects on your doorstep today? Are your business-based requests just, a line around the block? I mean, I'd love to hear from the group here before I kind of jump into some of these next stages.
So that note on perceived competition was pretty poignant to me, I guess. It seems like a lot more urgency gets placed in because nobody wants to fall behind. I thought that was pretty interesting.
And Adam, I apologize. It might be because I had to dial in. I'm having a really hard time hearing you. Were you talking about the perceived capabilities from the business partners?
Yeah, sorry. Perceived capabilities from competition. Perceived competition.
Yeah.
Because you think they're further ahead than they actually are. So it creates false urgency. I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we've most recently in the work is taking me to, just the energy industry. And I think that disparity is pretty impressive. Just hearing what they talk about and are looking to perceive, and then also getting to see under the hood where a lot of these large firms are at they've got a lot of work to do is my point. But I mean, the perception in that case is that, no, our competitors are using, advanced deep learning AI models for, forecasting, which, that might be true somewhere, but it's definitely not the case across the board at this point. And so I think it drives a lot of that uncertainty, to your point. But also, it also provides a momentum that, I think right now we have a chance to capitalize on. We have a chance to, have those budget discussions and talk about that long-term roadmap that puts us in better positions, even if it's not directly AI, but over the next couple of years, the level of work and, data is going to continue to be an issue regardless if it's AI or other implementations. I mean, that people have to come to terms with across a multitude of industries. So I think it does provide us something unique, an opportunity we need to take advantage of. But what else? Thank you, Adam. It was great.
I can concur with what you're saying. At my current employer, they're taking a much more measured approach and have assigned the sorry, it kicked me out of the audio. And have assigned the gentleman who used to be our CIO, CTO to be VP of Special Projects, and he's taking it slowly with that long-term view and doing it right. At another company where I'm advising a startup, the CEO is your typical idea man, and he just approached us last week saying, "Hey, we should be using Gen AI and attaching this to our data set." And I've had to bring down his expectations a little bit as to how fast we can get this done.
Yeah, and depending on where you're standing, no, I agree. All right. So this one is one of my favorites, and someone told me that you guys, and this is my first time speaking, so at this, so thank y'all for inviting me and allowing me to do so. But someone told me that you guys discuss more builds here, and if that's the case, I brought a few very high level to chat through, but there was much more presentation based than maybe panel based. But with the question around this was with significant investments in AI POCs and implementations, you face an issue with being able to ensure that these initiatives deliver at some point actual impact or ROI, and how are you measuring that, and how are you forecasting for it, and making sure that your work is going to be impactful. So our conversation quickly went to combining elements, right? I mean, you spend a lot of time talking about data preparation for AI. A basic simple one we already talked about is a forecasting model. Forecasting engines require a lot of testing and feeding and retesting for that model to learn. But what you don't always get to hear about is the automation prep. How are you going to give this the tendrils it needs to really hook into your business and run? And so I think that's an interesting point. Is how do you want to say that? Waiting on perfection seems to be something that gets in the way a lot of times with AI implementation. And while forecasting for energy might be a difficult argument to have in this particular aspect, other aspects, from my history in MarTech aren't. MarTech is much more about testing where you do get near instantaneous results and potentially ROI, or at least adjustments towards it, right? And so a build that we chatted about here was with it had an Oracle and MAB build. So multi-arm bandit build that basically, they take testable data structures, hand them off for test, take the results back to a decisioning engine, and that process repeats, and the reinforced learning model just continues to improve in a dynamic environment. So a group I've had the privilege to work with called OfferFit, if you've never heard of them, this is almost specifically what they do within MarTech and some other, a multitude of industries, but it was incredibly successful. It's one of the, as I'll talk about the history, as AI starts to pick up, I guess I'd say, 2017 through, and then you get the pandemic boost in 2020. It was a great time to guinea pig for a lot of these new shops that started to open up, while they found themselves consigned to their, apartment garage or what have you, and had time to really tinker, think, and build. And we had a partner come out of that. So George and his guys there at OfferFit built us something to test out, a retention engine on. And I'll talk about that a bit more in a second. But I mean, I think that's probably one of my favorite builds that came out of that section, just because it took multivariate testing, and I think they used the AB to AI as their slogan. But I mean, it took our very successful multivariate testing model for retention that had really brought us out of a depth of an attrition basis point structure and just demolished us. And I'm talking like in 3 months once we had it stood up, the value we were able to receive. So it's really cool use case story I'll share. But I mean, the foundational elements as catalysts for that success, we already talked about the clean data, but organizations that skip these preparatory steps that we've talked about are going to face pretty horrific challenges. An investment in these areas is not just preparatory, but critical for ensuring that success on these initiatives is there. So evolving use cases. So this is kind of what I talked about from the time-based perspective here. I think it's, I kind of talked about it in my initial, but I mean, in 2017 to 2019, AI-focused automation like chatbots and not early RPA, but RPA became more prevalent. You have automation anywhere, and the companies like that, you saw making a break constantly, and the ROI is difficult to ascertain, I think, during that time, but not impossible. I got to I've only actually had one AI program, I guess I'd call it, that lived through the whole phase, right? Started 2017 TensorFlow work, and it actually was a chat bot, and now has made the full transition over to whatever our most recent GPT-4 structure is, and getting to kind of ride that wave of begging for that implementation early on, and now the changes to it are just almost absolute as far as what we're going to get and what the business thinks we should be able to do. And it's one of the few that's grown with them, so that particular use case was a very easy explanation across the years. But I mean, the question came out of this one, which is how are you balancing the foundational investments made in previous years with the new rapid demand and ROI? So I guess, Adam, kind of like what you were talking about, I mean, getting the wave, be it perceived threat or just the new shiny that's on the street, is providing us a very unique window for us to be able to start a roadmap with maybe more budget than we've been given in the past, or more capability to help shape the business than has been given in the past. I think this frames it up in a very simplistic but straightforward way that has been my experience, frankly. And it's just gone from please just wait and see the success to sweet Lord that has to wait until the end of 2025. Just with what we've been able to do. But I read a report actually from Databricks that talked about kind of some of the AI pioneers, and really talking about how 2022 and 2023 for what they would call, and I don't mean pioneers such as taking OfferFit as an example, who built their own and now sell it, but even industries making that application. 2017 to 2019 was dabbling and where you could get it, but 2021 through 2023, maybe 2022, it was a lot of data work. The companies that had found capability here really putting in work from the data and foundation and automation layer capabilities to be able to feed something longer. And I don't mean necessarily just an LLM or your chat GPT or what have you, but I mean any of your models, like really being able to ride this wave out. But then of course, 2024 with it's perceived at least constant ROI driven capability, your large LLMs are really reshaping that business. I'll just go to closing thoughts really quick. So, I mean, from our conversation, and I mean, for my last 7 years, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this, or maybe some other builds you guys are on. But I mean, AI is not an easy button. It's not going to be a quick fix. It's definitely a marathon. I don't. If you're doing GPT or an advanced deep learning build, I mean, you've got to make sure it's fed and getting what it needs and is applied correctly and where it goes. I mean, I have learned that the hard way multiple times, even with just AI built chatbots, and that chatbots sound great from an operational perspective and cost savings and moving your cost pit of a call center into something digital. But I mean, there's a host of things a chatbot, AI or otherwise, just should not handle. And that can be quite costly to learn in real time. But embracing your strategies long term, those learnings included, that data structure included, how is it going to be automated? What does the roadmap look like for constant iteration and improvement? Foundations, I think we've beat that with a stick, but the data structure is imperative, making sure that it's ready to scale depending on what it is that you're wanting to do over time. But I mean, your large scale chatbots, your deep learning models, your AI-driven multivariate testing capabilities, all of those require a constant scaled and way to move quite a bit of data both in and out quite quickly with an intelligent ETL structure. Building momentum with small wins has worked really well for us over time. Again, I think right now we're at a golden age of our ability to really push this in successful ways and in places that have impact, but small wins continue and will hold that momentum for you. And Bill actually stole that from somebody else, but success capital, right? Your ability to continually try the cutting edge and test the variability, I think is it's an easy way to ensure that that's constantly on the doorstep. And keeping the big picture in mind, I've seen that time and time again, both the projects I've mentioned here today, as well as others that are similar to it. I mean, it's very, very easy to get in the weeds and continue to build one-off and shoots that might fix a problem or two, but are not necessarily going to scale you in the direction you need to be in. And I think it's an easy pitfall. Speaking of this golden age and ability you might be turning yourself into now, to check yourself on your roadmap and build. I'd like to turn it over to the group. Sorry, I think I kind of took the time disparity at the beginning and rushed through this, so I apologize, but I'd really like to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, I've got questions.
Yeah, please.
I'm sure people do. There's a couple of questions that I came. Like, you mentioned that you started, I think it was a chatbot, started out in TensorFlow back in 2017, and has kind of evolved that same functionality to a generative AI now. Is that a RAG based, or are you training that model on your chat information? How was that structured?
So pretty much exactly like you stated. I mean, obviously with TensorFlow and the just asinine number of changes that it has seen over the years, and the audit logs we've kept, you're able to use that. But the reality is that with ChatGPT's LLM, especially the, am I on 4 and change, or is it just 4? We started on 3.5 and just moved to 4. I mean, it's like a cheat code. I mean, our ability to just create a very simplistic database, here's a knowledge base, here are all these other subtopics, here are the automations and flows you need to be able to change things in the system. I mean, that we've built around it. A lot of them were simply reusable. We just had to change how we structured it to feed the element. And yeah, I mean, was it work? Yes. Was it anything like building out a TensorFlow bot that you have to have a unique response to every misspelling potential? I mean, no. But it's vastly superior, and the reporting out of it is it shows that for us. And just, I mean, from a transparency perspective, we built with Quick over the last several years. If you guys, it's a conversational AI platform that spans a multitude of platforms that you can work with, be it social media, text, Apple Business Chat, or they don't call it that anymore, but what was Apple Business Chat, et cetera. So it's been very successful. Our historical build got to expand a bit further. And actually, I have, where are you? This one. Our initial build, because of how we had to approach it, was done with really a small army of what we nicknamed microbots. We had conversational bots that handled 1 or 2, automated items that we wanted to get to, and then it would feed it back to this, centralized, almost like an IVR structure, if you think about it that way. So it would figure out what you wanted, hand it off where it needs to be handed off, and all of them could hand you off via IVR back to a live call, or put you in the call queue, or link you up with a live agent to text with. But yeah, this was, the move over was honestly much smoother compared to all of the learnings we got from what feels today like almost a manual approach to automation.
Nice oxymoron.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it felt like when you look back at it. It's like, man, the amount of custom, coding you have to do to make this thing do what it did that's what it felt like. But I mean, overarchingly, it, once we really dialed in that particular industry, what call types could be handled autonomously and what call types could be a hybrid and what call types just shouldn't be touched. Ultimately, we hovered around a 34%, pure conversion of these call types don't exist anymore. And it was, I mean, obviously a big relief from an operational perspective, from a fiscal capability, and also, I mean, it built of other departments. I was happy to say that it wasn't just a mass layoff or anything of that nature. But in the cross-sell capability is something else that was interesting from it, was people who wanted to explore and purchase or get into new products at 10 p.m. was a bit of a surprise. And so you just have these bots that were able to, it's not like they go celebrate Christmas. So I mean, they're all hanging out all day.
Okay, so another like question prompted from your last slide was, you talked about the vision. Always, don't get caught up in the solving the one-offs, but maintain that eye on the bigger, larger vision, so that you're always, like in a code base, I get that you're always trying to maintain the architecture and seeing the big picture so that you don't get code rot and technical debt and things like that. With how fast things are changing, how do you? I mean, it almost seems like that you, like when I talk to business owners, I talk about vision, trying to think what are you going to be in 5, 10 years. It almost seems like that has to be shorter now. It's like a vision is like 2 years because or 6 months or something because it's going
Yeah.
so fast. And you've got to like rethink like we couldn't do this before, but now it's possible. So does that affect my what I'm going to envision for the system? Does that make sense? And
No, it does completely. Yeah. And am I going to be suddenly behind the curve, theoretically with
well,
what we're trying to move
chasing
to?
the vision that's irrelevant anymore, right? I'm
Right.
chasing this is really cool thing, that I get there and nobody wants to buy it or it's just not
Yeah.
valuable anymore because it's been subsumed by generative AI or something.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, that makes me instantly think of, the amount of work that I have helped guide through, AdWord implementation, and what does that look like in the next few years? I mean, that's going to be completely disrupted as that be, something like GPT becomes more mainstream. But the other side that I would state is what I have found to be the answer to that often is something we've just kind of nicknamed a cross-functional approach. So we built at this particular company that I'm referencing what we call the transformation office. And I don't necessarily need the buzzword that happened for a little while where everybody was a, director of digital transformation or something of that nature. But I do mean, to help us focus on what mattered and that we were not necessarily looking for cool new tech to be able to bring in, but solutions regardless therein of what we needed to spearhead our resources into. I'm sorry, this is going to spread out a bit. We once we started moving into tech like this, we experienced a different issue that it hadn't hampered us as much before, which was, personnel resource or FTE resources to throw at all of these projects. We've been pretty good about owning our own areas, but once some of this newer tech came in and everybody wanted a piece, let's just be frank, some of the ideas that were coming to the door and getting promoted weren't the best. And we saw that probably within 6 painful months. And so what we did was built a transformation office around it where it seems like a simple answer, but you had to build a business case with estimated cost and long-term revenue estimations on what you think your product is going to be able to achieve and why. Put the whole case around it, and we would review those. I mean, with CEO down in this meeting, it happened every 2 weeks. And it helped remove a lot of what you're talking about, Guy. Like, so I think you're in your conversation. I'm the same way. I was thinking about it from the technological roadmap, and this removed us from having to focus on that as much and allowed us to focus on what gaps are in the business that we need to really solve. And then we can talk, once we get approved, I don't know what just happened. Can y'all hear me anymore?
Yeah, we can still hear you. Yep.
Okay. Sorry about that. So, yeah, and allowed us to then back into our technological, be it tech debt in the area or, we have opportunities now for A, B, and C. And I know that's not the easiest to set up everywhere, but even if it's lower than that, a cross-functional team that meets in those areas to help with not just requirements, but I mean, even, planning your roadmap for the next 6 months helps alleviate things like that pretty quickly.
Sounds like like you're kind of democratizing the vision. Like a lot of the business philosophies, like the executives and leaders have to have that vision. They have to be the keepers of it. And I think that may still be true, but what you're saying is like there's just too much. I think I'm translating that there's too much stuff going on. They can't be the only owners of the vision. You have to actually push that out a little bit, get cross-functional teams in place, and
yes,
like maybe your vision is that little bit of what we're going to be to the market and to the business, to the economy, what this business is going to mean. But everything else, like how that system actually coalesces and how it fits together, has to be a team vision effort. And because things are just changing so quickly. That's interesting. That's really fascinating.
That's exactly right. It's once I lived it once, it's something I've tried to implement everywhere that I've been able to go since. It's not always easy, but it has always worked once you get it stood up, in my experience.
I can imagine culturally that can be a real challenge to come into an existing.
Yeah, initially. I mean, you really have to be able to push the, I think an old leadership adage is, look, I I want everybody around me to be smarter than me, right? To make up for all of my weaknesses, and that's really what that is promoting. So you've got to be able to put your, I guess, pride aside and just look. You bring something to the table no one else has, and they've got to do the same.
Cool. Sorry, I've been monopolizing the question, so I'll be quiet for a little bit.
Good. Anything else, folks?
Yeah, I was just trying to give other folks a chance to talk. You kind of hit on some of my questions. Thanks, Guy. One of them that lingers, though, is, you were kind of talking about how a cross-functional team is helpful and, seeing the same vision. A lot of times that takes transformation. Maybe you came from like a team that wasn't so cross-functional or something. And that transformation is pretty tough, and it actually kind of jumps you to the next level of what you can do, when you get it done. And I was kind of wondering, did the same sort of things happen in data architecture, data model? Like, did you see changes ripple about the way the business was thought about because machine learning was adopted, or, in the process of adopting machine learning, your business changes. So I wonder if that rippled out to your data too.
No, it absolutely does. It did the same thing. I mean, I think I just randomly called it our golden age opportunity for AI. But I mean, the reality is that if you're not already in a place to utilize AI, which I think is very common right now, I mean, everybody wants it, but as soon as you go to implement, and even other things like calculation engines, I've seen, your data has to be in a good place to feed something like that, right? Your data and your data platform teams or your data science teams all get the first big boost. And because they have to, you've got to centralize your data. You've got to, make sure the data, I mean, clean is such an oversimplification, but this is the right data, this is the right source, this is what we should be using, all of those things. And again, I think I mentioned earlier, that wasn't just for AI. I mean, it was for a host of other projects that we needed, and that quickly came about, So as these, here are the gaps, to your point. So the initial vision from the transformation office came in, like, these are the things that are causing us to bleed out as as a firm. And then the next phase down is, okay, what business cases have we seen or have we tasked out that are aligning to this, that we can start to put resources behind and funding behind. And that was incredibly quick across the board. So machine learning, yes, gave that a boost, but I would state that when you get your ducks in a row to start to really propel your business in an organization like that, data is, if not the first, like your top three.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, that was interesting.
Are there other thoughts or questions? I can briefly talk about that last build if y'all don't have it, or if it's of interest. Because it was really cool, and one that I would suggest. So in this, I think I mentioned it was a retention aspect that they were looking to be able to solve, but essentially, I mean, the business had a massive, like 19% retention rate year-over-year, or excuse me, attrition rate. And they were continuing to kick it down the can by, it was a monthly revenue style business, and just kick it down, kick the can down the road with, hey, we'll reduce your rate, which is just compounding the issue over time, right? Those 2 points you're going to meet, and then that's the end of life, right? So what we ended up doing after building just a base, get your MarTech and your data in place, Adam, to your point, how quickly that comes about, to be able to fuel something like that, was we ended up partnering with OfferFit. And OfferFit uses that Oracle and just a multitude of multi-armed bandit agents underneath it to test a host of series. So long story short, we used about 250 different data points on each customer, or whatever variation of that they had, to come up with, basically what it generated was a multitude of sub-segmentation for us. So with A/B testing or multivariate testing, most firms come out with a solid list of 5 to 10 segments or even personas that they're going to produce. And I mean, I can't tell you how quickly we ended up scrapping all of that work that we had done from a manual data review sense or even going through visualization and letting this just essentially tell us, like, no, guys that look like Mike and live in Dallas, might be from East Texas and have a birthday in June, and the list goes on and on. This is how they like to be communicated to when you're offering something. And your first month was obvious. You're not learning anything new. But by month 3, I mean, just being transparent. One of the offers we tested was, hey, if you lock in your rate now, we up it by whatever amount, and you lock in for 3 years, we promise you won't have a rate increase for those 3 years. So pay us more, and we won't make you pay more later with the product. And I mean, that was, that highlighted 2 things. It highlighted an issue in the firm that, look, your customers really hate rate increases, and that's probably fueling your attrition. But 2, it also highlighted that, customers just want that control. I mean, by itself, I think that generated like somewhere in 3 million of a revenue hike, like just from a singular email template. I mean, the findings that came out of that and our ability to test what, literally throw, pasta at a wall and see what stuck, and the AI would be able to tell you rapidly and learn from it. It was unparalleled for us. It took, again, Adam, circling back to data, that was the biggest, that plus integration work was the long pole intent from the technology perspective. Marketing probably got worked to the bone with the number of, amount of creative that had to show up and fuel something like that. I mean, you had 60 offers with just different variations, but I mean, yeah, it was, it is a use case that I will forever support from just a base reinforced learning model.
So I'm intrigued by that strategy. It kind of reminds me of some of the other strategies that I've heard where you try a lot of things. It's not randomly guessing, but you're trying a lot of different things, and those things that stick, then you stay after it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's exactly right.
That's right. But 60 offers is a lot. If you're a small firm, that seems like a lot of effort there. I assume this client was a big enough firm that they could afford that.
Yes.
So my question then, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would say my question would be, is there an analogous approach for smaller companies who don't have that budget that want to approach AI and starting to get into this in a competitive way?
Yeah, no, I think that, I think part of your question provides a very, a big answer. And right now, I think everybody's seeing so much about generative AI that, implementations like this that are a bit more, I would say, advanced and require more depth of thought aren't getting talked about as much. This is a great example of, not all AI is going to be beneficial. So, I mean, to your point, this build, if you have 10,000 customers, and even they might be large, big B2B firms, but I mean, you're not going to get the variation and data feeds in that you need to really see learning growth from something like this. And so your ability to test now over historical data would still get you a good forecast, right? So if you have years and years of a smaller customer base worth of contacts and following behaviors to then run through, this ended up in cancellation, this ended up in further purchase, whatever it is. That's a pretty interesting map, but that's also not really a reinforced learning structure at that point. I mean, the long story is, God, yes, I think that there is, but I think it would be a much longer conversation and dive into what you've got on hand to be able to chart through something like that.
Cool. I guess it is. It ends up being still very, very specific to the company,
right?
To the situation, right? What you can do.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, that was, yeah, I mean, a 500 million company or so, I believe, if I remember correctly, and we had a rotating base of like 250,000 customers we target on a daily basis. So it was
50,000 targeted offers a day. So about once a week, you'd be sending out to each of your
rolling through.
mailings.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice.
That's correct. Well, folks, we've got 5 minutes left. Again, I apologize for all the technical fun we had at the beginning of this. And thank you all
that's on me.
very much.
I apologize.
And thank you guys very much for having me. I'd love to, I learned about this one just a bit late, but I'd love to hear more about what you guys talk about, come to some of these, but also hear maybe more of what you'd like to talk about, because it'd be fun to do one of these again.
Sure. Sure. I'll send you, Mike. I'll send you the link to our YouTube channel.
Okay.
And I just sent it out to the whole group last Wednesday, I guess. So, but yeah, I'll post this video up there, and you can see we've only got 2 other videos right now, and I've got 1 other I need to post. So we'll end up with like 4 up there by early next week. And then hopefully every time we have a speaker, I'll be recording it and posting a new one up there. That's the plan.
All right.
Cool. Well, thank you
All
so
righty.
much. That's awesome.
Well, thank you guys very, very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. That was great. See you guys.
All right.
See you.
Take care, folks.
Thank you. Bye.